Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. I am grateful for your time. I'm happy that you're spending it with me. Today's episode, I'm kind of all over the place. I got a lot of things I want to talk about that have been on my mind. And as you know, I've been doing some shows on memes. Yeah, I'm going to have a couple memes. I'm not going to put them on video today, though. I'm just going to read from them. But what I also have today is as I go through social media and I see what a lot of people are saying on it, I see a lot of comments and conversations. I'll read them and it'll spark thoughts. I'll read what they're saying. I go, yeah, I agree, or maybe I disagree. And then it sparks a thought. So I've kind of pulled up down below over here on my screen some of those conversations, some of those things that some of my friends on Facebook are saying and people that are saying on social media. I'm going to share them with you, not their names, not because I'm not giving them credit, but because they don't know that I'm sharing their thoughts, but they're making it public. So it is public domain. However, I'm not going to tell their names because that's just courtesy. But I am interested in seeing what you think of some of those comments, and I'll give my opinion on them. And I also have some thoughts. I have a conspiracy theory about Charlie Kirk. I am not making light of anything, but I do have a thought about it. And I'm using that thought and this opportunity to make a point that we have to think for ourselves. And we'll talk about that in a minute when I get to it. Got some memes, like I said. And so let's go ahead and get started with today's episode brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Have you switched your cell phone service to Patriot Mobile yet? If you haven't, I highly recommend that you do. You're going to probably save money. They have plans that fit any budget. They put America first, and you're going to get the same or better coverage. Go to patriotmobile.com/WWFA to get a discount on there. Let me start with reading some of the social media posts that some of my friends on Facebook have said. And some of them you're going to agree with, and some of them you're not going to agree with, most assuredly. Actually, this one just disappeared, but I am going to pull it up right away. It is it was actually a here it is. It was actually a of course he's got one that says I am Charlie Kirk, which I agree with, but the thing that was up that I really thought I would really try to get, let's see, I'll tell you what, we're going to switch to the next one. The next one is from a friend of mine who certainly leans to the left. And while she has not attacked Charlie Kirk or has not made negative comments, they have made these, or she has made these passive aggressive comments concerning not just Charlie Kirk, but also just things about what's going on now. I'll just go and read it. It says, conservatives, colon, why can't we exist and treat each other with, or as if the conservative is saying this, why can't we exist and treat each other with kindness no matter our political differences? Also, conservatives, we don't want to exist with immigrants, gays, or trans people. They need to get out and not exist. In fact, we want to take any information about them out of the education system to try to keep them from existing and keep our kids ignorant. Okay, when I read this, conservatives aren't the ones saying, well, when she says, why can't we exist and treat each other with kindness no matter our political differences? Conservatives are asking that because people on the left who have their beliefs and ideologies, if you don't agree with them, then they don't think you're existing. They don't respect a conservative point of view. They only want to treat with kindness and respect if you agree with them. And when she says also conservatives, we don't want to exist with immigrants. No, we don't want illegal immigration. We don't want to exist with gays. No, actually, most Republicans I speak to really don't care how people live their lives. They don't care how they're born, how they choose to live their lives, or the case may be. Most conservatives want the freedom and liberty to not have to accept it. They don't want to be forced to believe it. They don't want to be forced to have it in society where you've got a whole month of a whole pride month, and they don't want to have the rainbow stolen. There's just different little things that have that they don't want forced on them. And while homosexuality is, of course, it's like gay marriage. If you don't believe in gay marriage, don't have one. If you don't believe in homosexuality, don't be one. But it goes beyond that here. It goes down to people don't want somebody else's belief system or how they live their lives forced on them. So no, it's not that we don't want to exist with gay people in the community. It's that we don't want to be forced to accept it and agree with it and also promote it. Because if you're not accepting, agreeing 100% and promoting, they will say something like this, that we don't want them to exist. Not the case. Or trans people. Actually, it's once again, most Republican, conservative minded, even Christians that I speak to, it's not that they dislike trans people or don't want them. It's that they just don't simply agree with it, and they don't want to be forced to agree with the transitioning of children under the age of 18. And then, of course, when it says the when she continues with her comment about keeping kids ignorant, that's in reference to taking books out of children's libraries. It's not that we don't believe in the First Amendment. It's not that we don't believe in education or library books or any kind of book in the school. It's simply that we don't want books in the school that teach children how to have sexual acts. And that's the kind of books that they want removed from schools, are simply the ones that that actually not only refer and tell, but show sex acts. And simply most Republican conservative minded Christians simply just don't want those books in the children's sections. Most of them just fight to have them put in adult sections. So once again, my friend, you are wrong on that thought. Let's see, one of my next Facebook posts that I thought was good. This is a good one. This is from a friend who actually is on the same side as I am, kind of believes the same things, but I thought the post was interesting and I had some comments on it. It says, I'll be honest with y'all, canceling people no matter what they say isn't a good idea. We are just perpetuating the same mindset that the left has. I wildly disagree with what people are saying about Charlie and his death, but seeking to pursue their livelihood isn't a way to do that. Revenge isn't ours to take. I know people will say that it's all the natural course of free speech, but it really isn't. Going after someone to seek their ruin is cancel culture that we are supposed to hate. And not only do I agree with what he's saying here, it is parallel to a thought I had. As I listened to my friends on the right criticize my friends on the left that didn't like Charlie Kirk. Now, look, I definitely do not support anti Charlie Kirk talk because I like Charlie Kirk. I liked his movement, loved his passion, loved everything that he was doing. He was talking Christianity, he was talking faith, country, putting America first. He was talking Constitution, and he had the facts to back up anything that people would argue with him about. I believed in him. So I'm not dismissing his movement at all whatsoever when I say that while the left is and people that are Democrats, people that don't like him, are saying things I don't like, for us to try to silence them, we are simply doing to them what they do to us. Two wrongs don't make a right. I get it. I'm not advocating for them to be able to say it. What I am saying is when we pull one way, they're going to pull the other way. And then we don't go to that place of having good conversation in the middle that solves problems, which is exactly what Charlie Kirk was trying to do. He was trying to find conversation, places in the middle that brought more people together. And if we lose that, we lose everything that Charlie Kirk was trying to do. And it made another thought come to my mind, which is where is the line of the First Amendment? Where does the First Amendment, where does the line that you cross, or where does the First Amendment end? And the where does our First Amendment rights end, and where does violence begin? And here's what I mean by that. I don't condone or like what people on the left are saying that don't like Charlie Kirk. What I don't condone is if it's outright hateful. It's kind of like, you know, screaming fire in a movie theater. You got to be able to know what, how shall I say this? If if they are not being respectful, they are only calling themselves out. They're only showing themselves for who they are. Instead of trying to silence them, make it known this person's saying this person's saying that. Not, and it has been done. Not that they should lose their jobs. Look, if they work for some place that serves the public, do I want them working there? No, I don't. Because once again, like in the case of New Orleans, there were some firemen that were anti-Kirk. There were that were posting things like that. There have been people in the food industry. Do you want them serving you? Because look, there's a brewery in New Orleans that was saying they will spit in your beer. My point is, if they're calling themselves out, especially if it's a business, at least we know who they are. Now, do I want to hear them saying calls of violence? Absolutely not. That is when your First Amendment right crosses the line, and preaching violence is not covered under your First Amendment right. Actually, my attorney friends will probably say that it is, because First Amendment freedom of speech is, all freedom of speech is covered under the First Amendment. But again, if they're calling for violence, which I haven't heard that yet from them, then we should probably just leave them alone and let them make themselves look like fools. However, another friend of mine told me in his kind of a, it wasn't conspiratorial, but I thought it was interesting. He said he doesn't know any of these hateful people in person. He doesn't have any friends that are saying that. So his point was, are the people really real that are supposedly saying all of these hateful things about Charlie Kirk? Is it just more people creating something to create division in our country? So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'll scratch that off the list. So what hate speech is acceptable? For my attorney friends that might say that all First Amendment is protected, even hate speech, which, yes, I understand that it is. At what point is it not acceptable? At what point do we say, you know what? I've heard enough. I am going to point it out. I am going to say something about it. People on the right and my friends and even me are pointing out that the inflammatory rhetoric coming from people on the left, coming from people that don't like Charlie Kirk, is doing nothing but creating more division, it will do nothing but create violence. It has gotten to a point where it's our obligation to not just let them point themselves out, but to point it out to others so that way we can stop it. But only, let me back up a second. So we can stop it, but the best way to stop it isn't shutting them up, isn't even as much getting them fired. They're still going to hate Charlie Kirk and they're going to hate conservatives and everybody else more. Not that it makes it right. What we can do to shut them up is to work harder on getting out truth, is to work harder on getting out positive thoughts, is to work harder on spreading the message that Charlie Kirk was spreading out. Now, look, my intention today was not to do a show and use Charlie Kirk as an example. I'm not trying to jump on that bandwagon to try to just use this time where um, it's it's a subject that everybody's processing. But what I am trying to point out is that there was a movement going on that he started and he was working hard to perpetuate. He was getting out there that a lot of people didn't see. They didn't see the good things he was trying to do. The left didn't see his good work. People that didn't like him, people that are adhered to the narratives that divide them up a little bit more into their different ideologies that conservatives don't agree with. I'll say it that way. They didn't so much dislike Charlie. Well, they took their anger out on Kirk, but they didn't like what he said. So, as conservatives, we should arm ourselves with the same things that Charlie Kirk was doing: facts, peace, conversation, decency, being human, and being respectful. So instead of silencing people, let them point themselves out. Let them show themselves who they are. If they're your friends, because when you silence the majority of them, all of them shut up. You don't know who they are. Let them point themselves out. And instead, fight back, not with silencing them, fight back with facts, fight back with compassion, respect. I know it's hard to respect somebody that doesn't like you and doesn't like your beliefs and doesn't like somebody that died for all of those beliefs that he held so dear. Fight back with peace, facts, and truth. And then, and only then, will we be able to win the argument of facts over feelings and narratives. I'm going to pivot for just a second on a parallel thought because when on one of the news stories, I mentioned this in my podcast the other day, that it said that a conservative activist friends with Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist friends with Donald Trump. And I'm hearing that a lot lately, activist. Okay. Robert Redford died today, and he was called a liberal activist. Well, why do why do does any- why do we have to label activist? Why does any of us? Why do we have to label anybody an activist just because they stand and speak out for what they believe in? By definition, I get it; it makes them an activist. But some people don't see that as a passionate term. It's almost like when some of the politicians have called Trump Hitler. People don't see that it's just because they don't like him. They really feel like, hey, this guy's Hitler. So it's the same with activists. And Robert Redford, I'm sure they did it in a very friendly way, because he was a liberal activist. He was and that's how that was pointed out. So that makes it a good activist, right? So they're defining a good activist from a bad activist. Again, it goes along with the narratives. My sharing all this with you, I'm gonna pause for a second and kind of break my train of thought. And saying things this way, like letting people speak their hate, it is protected in the First Amendment, but recognizing when hate speech crosses the line to violence, that's when we have to stop it peacefully if possible, and allowing them to do it and fighting back with peace. My reason for explaining all this and doubling down on it is that we are in a time where the media is controlling our thoughts. The narratives are controlling our thoughts. The media is perpetuating those narratives. And there's lots of subgroups that they have been able to reach and target through their narratives and ideologies that they adhere to. If we're not hypersensitive, over aware of it all, they're only going to get better at it, and we're going to lose more people to becoming radicalized, becoming people that are intolerant of others. If we don't find a way to educate ourselves on all the facts, both sides, because here's the thing about listening to both sides. You don't have to agree with the other side. I don't agree with what they do, what they say or do, but because I listen, I can understand in such a way that I don't necessarily have to agree with them. I don't agree with them at all most of the time, but I don't have to. When you listen, you to understand, it at least puts you in a place where you're able to have dialogue with some of them. Be able to have conversation. And even if you don't get to have conversation, it gives you an opportunity to think about solutions to problems that can't be fixed ideologically, can't be fixed through narratives. So simply the process of listening and acknowledging in a respectful way, instead of listening to answer and argue, you listen to understand, you win. Even if they don't agree with you, even if they don't come to you and say, "Hey, look, I'm switching sides. I'm becoming a conservative." You win because the lack of argument does not allow them to galvanize their beliefs. It doesn't give them the opportunity to really concrete what they're thinking. The left always talks about unity, and again, I've said this before on my show plenty of times that the that I hate using terms like the right and the left and conservative and Democrat, because it again, it almost kind of perpetuates the division. But sometimes just easier because, as you're seeing, the people on the right that have lost a person that they've loved and followed and believed very passionately in and just loved hearing their words, Charlie Kirk, they're having candlelight vigils right now. But the ones that are celebrating it are in essence celebrating murder. They're celebrating the death of somebody. And that says a lot. I have a lot of friends who consider themselves Democrats, liberal. Some I've heard one or two of them as I've shared some of her thoughts with you that I know don't like Charlie Kirk. They think he's hateful because he doesn't say what they want to say, what they believe. But what I do believe is that many of them have been divided up on their hot topics. And that is how they become more inflamed. But when we try to tell them they're wrong and shut up and use cancel culture, which we're supposed to be against, it only galvanizes them. They win. But when we once again pivot away from that and fight a different way, we win. The left is always talking about unity. It's one of the many ways that they galvanize their side. It's one of the many ways that they can use hate speech, hateful thoughts, call conservatives and Christians racist and bigots, and they get away with it because their side hears them talking about unity and love and and how their side is better for humanity. But the only way they really want unity is if you agree with their beliefs 100%. The only way they want unity is if you unify with them on their beliefs and their ideologies and their narratives. You will never get them to unify under a conservative banner. The left promotes violence by forgiving and dismissing hate speech because they feel their hate speech protects their beliefs and ideologies. And their hate speech, or they shall say this, they hate free speech that does not say what they believe. So they will say they support free speech, but they will hate free speech that does not say what they believe. And I'm hearing my friends already right now, well, conservatives are hating the liberals because they're not agreeing with them. Not the case. Conservative minded people really don't care if you don't like. I have conservative values. I'm certainly on the right. I don't dislike somebody because they don't agree with my values. I don't dislike somebody or hate them because they don't love my conservative values and agree with me. What I don't like is their way of thinking, and that's just my opinion. I don't have to unify on it to agree with their way of thinking or to agree that they have the right to think the way they do. I can accept that they think that way and not agree with it. There's a difference. I can still call them friends, some of them. I can still like some of these people that I disagree with. The problem is they think differently. If you don't agree with them, you're the racist, hateful bigot. Again, when they don't agree with conservatives, conservatives go, okay, whatever. I don't agree with what you're saying, but okay. And we have prayer vigils and unity. Whereas they will do everything to destroy you and do cancel culture. People on the right will dismiss their hate speech and will point out the absurdities of it, of the absurdities of the reality, while the left is calling for violence. They will call you hateful. And I know I'm repeating it, but I'm doing this for a purpose, to double down on the difference on the way of thinking from both sides. That, my friends, is the biggest difference right here, which is why we have to be the bigger people and not use cancel culture to cut them out on their way of thinking, but simply magnify what we do best. Point out facts, call for peace, talk, have respect. Show the respect that they don't give. Now, in the beginning of the show, I told you that I even had a little conspiracy theory myself, and I was kind of saving it to this point right now. Actually, I'm gonna hold that thought for a minute because I did have another meme that I just now thought of that makes my point that I was just now talking about. Matt Walsh put a meme out that that points out some things that have happened in recent history. BLM riots, Antifa, church shootings, Trump assassination attempt, Charlie Kirk assassination, pro-life pregnancy fires, Tesla vandalism, attacks against ICE agents, attacks against police, attacks against federal courthouses. This is merely a partial list. Nearly all of the politically motivated violence in America is committed by one side. This is not a both sides thing. This is a one side thing, which goes back to what I've been telling you, that we have to continue to take the high road and that is the only way to fight this. The minute we go down the cancel culture route, the minute we start trying to shut them up, they will magnify their efforts. And unfortunately, they've got the media on their side. They've got the narratives on their side, and they're able to galvanize their people a lot faster through the media and spread it. And that is how they've gained so much ground. We have to find ways to fight back. We're doing it the right way. We just have to keep doing it peacefully. All right, back to my conspiracy theory. You know, conspiracy theories come out and people look crazy. I mean, look, when all the different conspiracy theories have come out through history, the people that are believing them, talking about them, they look at the crazy ones. I look at it like this, because I've thought about this. We got to stop calling them crazy conspiracy theorists. And we have to go back to just a simple thought. Questioning things doesn't make us a crazy conspiracy theorist. It makes us human. The problem is, all too often, some of the crazy things that come out just look so crazy that when you talk about it, you're the crazy one. We need to look at some things a little bit differently, and we should wholeheartedly feel good about questioning everything. Because when we question things, only then can the truth really come out. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you question something and it gets to a dead end and it was actually a crazy conspiracy theory, or maybe it was just a different road that ended up with no truth. Either way, I was watching the video with the gunman dropping off the roof, and I can't help but notice that there's no gun in his hands, no gun over his shoulder. He is carrying either a jacket or a towel, but you can tell there's nothing underneath it. Now, granted, the camera's from far away, but you can watch how this piece of cloth that he has in his hand is flopping around. Yet, if you watch the video, that same video, you'll hear the person commentating says, and now we witness the shooter or the suspect going into the woods where he's going to drop off the gun. The woods is just a simple, small little, and I mean, it's not even woods. It's just a little patch of trees in the middle of a roundabout. At no time when you watch him jumping down, do you see a gun? Do you see one over his shoulder? Whatever he's carrying is not covering up again because a Mauser 98 30-06 is about 42 inches long, maybe 36 to 42 inches long. Okay. Relatively speaking, depending on where the camera angle is, something that long is not in his hands, not over his shoulder, and certainly is too long to be covered up by the small clothy thing he has in his hands. Now, am I saying that he's the second gunman, there's another gunman? Not at all. But what I am questioning is this. All too often, people in society just want who did it. They want the body. They want the answer. And because they want an answer right away, they're not always going to get truth or accuracy. What we can hope for is that there's something that we don't see that we're not being told because it's further under investigation. Maybe there's something, another reason for it. But question it. We should be questioning everything. There's another one that shows where the angle of the shooter was and how could be another shooter. Again, I'm not saying that there was another shooter, that this wasn't the shooter at all whatsoever. But what I am saying is don't always rush to judgment. Don't always demand that the authorities rush to judgment just because people want answers. They want that immediate fix. And sometimes when you demand, when the public demands an immediate fix, they don't get accuracy. Again, not saying we're not getting accuracy in this situation, but what I am saying is I did notice something odd. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but by noticing something odd, I'm also going to notice other things to make me aware of what's going on in our world today. I did another couple memes that I wanted to share with you. Again, at this point of where I am right now, goes to a meme that I'm not going to put up. It talks about based on entry and exit wound dynamics, so the shooter would have been positioned someplace differently. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that that interesting thought because I didn't see it. And again, somebody can turn last minute, but I can only go by what I see, which again goes back to making my point that we have to go off of what we see, what we hear, what we experience, and not just what the media is telling us, because that's when narratives and ideologies kick in, change our brain, change our thinking, and then we never get the answers that we know to be true. We have a hard time getting facts because we're going off of news stories that make us feel better. Another meme shows Charlie Kirk sitting on a bench. insanity, thinking it's wrong to lose your job, meaning the ones who lost their jobs for saying bad things because of what you said. But what you said was Charlie should lose his life for what he said. I thought this is by a guy named Mario Murillo. I thought this was a very accurate statement. It pivots a little bit. It changes not what I was saying earlier that we can't shut people up. It's our First Amendment right. It's that we have to know how much we have to elevate the facts and the truth and attempt to squelch the fires of the narratives, to be able to silence with our louder voices when their First Amendment right crosses a line of hate and then crosses a line of violence. Our louder voices in unity with facts and compassion and respect, yes, you still have to have respect, are going to be what silences the hate that fuels violence. So again, I'll read this because I thought it's very, very good. Thinking it's wrong to lose your job because of what you said, but what you said was Charlie should lose his life for what he said. I think that is shows another barrier. And a little meme shows a father talking to his son, refers back to something I said earlier. I kind of pulled some memes out that we're going to connect with what I was talking about today. It says, you see, son, people don't want to hear your opinion. They want to hear their opinion coming out of your mouth. And this refers to the conspiracy thinking that I was telling you about. The more you research, the crazier you sound to ignorant people. Earlier, when I was talking about that you should question everything, sometimes questioning makes you look and feel like a crazy conspiracy theorist. And people who are just believing the narratives and just listening to the narratives that adhere to their ideologies, to the things that make them feel better about what they're thinking, they're going to think everybody else is ignorant, especially the ones that are looking into other things, that are trying to educate themselves by researching other thoughts, other information. And oftentimes, what's the difference between what a conspiracy and truth? Was it 6 months? I know I've got friends who are like, oh, that's crazy in itself. I get it. But still in all, don't ever let, just because something makes you think it's a little maybe conspiratorial, don't ever let that stop you from researching. Don't ever let it silence or squelch your curiosity, because your curiosity is your inner self going, wait, something's off, something's wrong. It might not prove something to be true, but the questioning might lead you to some other answers. And in this political world that we're in today, and the violence that's mounting, and the narratives are flying around, you need that curiosity more than anything else, because it's the one thing that you've got that is going to guide you. That curiosity is connected to your conscience. And I believe that when you listen to your conscience, You're going to become a more compassionate person, more respectful, somebody that promotes humanity. And all of these things promote dialogue and unity and finding solutions. That's why this battle that we're having right now with our First Amendment rights is more important than ever to question it, because then we can see not only that Charlie Kirk was right on most everything, and we can see where the violence is coming from, but we'll be able to fight it with all of that knowledge. If we this was some guy named K Creek. I don't know who he is, a little cowboy hat on in his meme. Says if we replaced cancel culture with critical thinking, we'd have empathetic conversations instead of emotional reactions. And by talking, we learn to separate honest mistakes from actual hate, which, of course, I like this meme so much because it reflects something that I'm saying just a little bit differently. We got to think in these ways, because if we get dragged into the gutter to thinking the way they do, using cancel culture, hateful speech, if you don't agree with us, you're wrong. If you don't agree with us, you're the hateful one. If we don't find some ways to have conversation, be empathetic, and be able to question, we can't get there without it, without that process. Charlie Kirk taught us that thoughtful political debate and good ideas can win the day. The left has long assumed that violence is necessary for political change. I just pointed out in the Matt Walsh video, or the Matt Walsh meme, all this, just some of the situations that the left has perpetuated. Back to this. The left has long assumed that violence is necessary for political change. And they're big money people funded, by the way. That they are good and their opposition is evil, which justifies the use of force to bring about a better world. Crazy thought, right? Well, the world is not better without Charlie Kirk. I did want to include that because it's in the meme, but there is truth to that. And like I said earlier, I didn't want this to be a Charlie Kirk memorial, but because that's what's prompted a lot of that's going on right now, and has prompted a lot of these thoughts, I do think it's necessary to bring him into this conversation, because that's where we are right now in our world. And we're watching violence on the rise. Hopefully, it is not the beginning of a new era. Hopefully, it's the end of a violent era. That's where we are today. I believe in freedom and liberty. I always tell my friends, I'm a right-leaning libertarian. I have conservative values. I'm Republican by registration. And I find that most of the people that share my ideals and my beliefs are, on the right, that are Republicans. But I'm also somebody that believes in not carrying the flag, carrying the water, perpetuating the ideologies of all my friends on the right. I'm not pulling center. I'm not giving up my beliefs. That's where I am. But I do believe that without dialogue with the other side and listening, our country stays divided and we don't find solutions. I don't have to give up my pro-life beliefs to find a solution somewhere in the middle that saves babies, I've said this example a bunch of times before, and I'll say it again. I'm pro-life, but I do believe in freedom and liberty. I might not always agree with somebody's freedoms and liberties and their choices, but I believe that with dialogue, you get people closer to where you are, which in that case is, you know, more babies in that particular example. But that applies to everybody. Every single topic there is that we have, it applies. You never have to give up your beliefs or your ideologies to have conversation. And I find that there are a lot of people that align themselves on the left, Democrats, that are reasonable-minded people that will talk in a place that brings people together. But the problem is the mainstream media, the narratives, the ideologies are galvanizing more and more people with hate for people that don't agree with them 100% and don't say what they say and don't think what they think. And those people tend to be on the left. People, conservative, Christian-minded people, we tend to be more relaxed about it, I'll say. Either way, I'd like for you to find ways to silence the other side through kindness, through facts, through good ideas, offering solutions that bring people together and not divide. And by being louder and positive, you silence their hate speech. And when you silence their hate speech, it looks like their numbers are dwindling and getting smaller. And then they can't unify for violence. Then they can't band together to plan more violence. That's how we stop it, with our loud, compassionate, factual voices. If you believe in medical freedom like I do, please go to you're gonna please go to the wellness company. Flub that one up a little bit, but the wellness company believes in medical freedom, and when you go there and use my promo code WWFA, you'll get a big fat discount off all their products that help promote your health and medical freedom. They're worth it. They are quality products that are designed to fit your freedom, and they have options for everything that you see advertised on TV. The wellness company has an option for it that is safe, natural, effective, and coincides with your desire for medical freedom. Go to twc.health/WWFA. Thank you so much for tuning in again. Please share the show.